Well, first of all, the homicide rate in Washington, D.C. is very high compared to other major cities and other world capitals. So to continue to say crime is down, I think you're giving people a false sense of the fact that it is, in fact, dangerous in Washington, D.C. But I tried to tell you last night, this issue with the Doge kid, Ed, people are pissed about this. And it hammered home for a lot of Republicans the fact that Washington, D.C. is violent. There's roving street gangs. There's lots of carjackings. And, you know, this guy worked in the White House. He was known to a lot of senior government officials. And I told you last night it had set off a firestorm in the Republican Party. And this is the result.
We have a Capitol that's very unsafe. You know, we just almost lost a young man, beautiful, handsome guy that got the hell knocked out of him the night before last. We're going to do something about it. So whether you call it federalized or what, and that also includes the graffiti that you see, the papers all over the place, the roads that are in bad shape, the medians that are falling down, the median in between roads that's falling down. We're going to beautify the city. We're going to make it beautiful. And what a shame. The rate of crime, the rate of muggings, killings, and everything else, we're not going to let it. And that includes bringing in the National Guard, maybe very quickly, too.
One of the things that we have seen over and over from the president, from his team, you know, Stephen Miller saying it's like Baghdad in Ethiopia. They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority black and brown. Do you see that, and what do you think that means?
I think that I have been dealing kind of with this issue for a number of years. It's kind of easy fodder on the campaign trail. But now we're talking about governing, and my job is to focus on making sure our city is running well, and people enjoy a great quality of life. And I think we're doing a really good job. We do need the federal government's help, as I mentioned, because they have an outsized influence on our criminal justice system. We need more prosecutors. We need more judges. There are other ways to help. Even we want to rebuild our jail, and there are ways that the feds can help with that. But also just doing their part, cutting the grass, fixing the fountains, making sure that federal law enforcement is doing all of the policing that they can do. And I just have to say thank you to MPS, FBI, ATF, who've always worked cooperatively with us, and we expect that they will again.
Boy. So we got to talk about a highly anticipated announcement that President Trump is scheduled to make tomorrow regarding dealing with homelessness and crime in Washington, D.C. Because apparently he has already stepped up federal efforts to crack down on crime in D.C. People are noticing a dramatic increase in federal officers on the street.
Oh my God, what the fuck? Oh, they really hopping out. Oh, that shit real. They really coming to your trenches and jumping out and bagging your ass, bro. They ain't all type of shit, boy. What the fuck?
Good morning. This is Commissioner Anthony Lorenzo Green, and it is like over 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm down here at 48th Street Northeast and Kane Place. President Trump and his Gestapo paid a visit to Deanwood tonight. Metro Transit Police, and along with other police agencies, shot at individuals on 48th Street. Thankfully, no one was hit, but there were 2 people detained. I'm still waiting for one of those individuals to be released. They've been holding him hostage in the alley in the neighborhood for a couple of hours now, and it's my understanding because he didn't do anything. He's an innocent bystander, but they decided to grab him and detain him. There were several police agencies out here: MPD, FBI, DEA, ICE, HSI, you name it. All the police resources you can name was out here in the community. Sheriff Row is still blocked off right now. So all the people that love to waste our tax dollars on all this police coverage in this city, let me tell you, a chunk of it is sitting right here in Deanwood doing nothing. So it's a shame that our community has to go through this in a city where everyone likes to pretend like this is something that just started happening when this president got in office. Feds been invading our neighborhoods for years. Deanwood is no stranger to a long list of federal agencies coming into our community to start nonsense. And tonight is no different.
You know, we've covered lots of stories at Union Station early in the morning. Police are here sometimes, yes, but I can tell you, having the lights on, flashing, just chilling here, staying in one spot, we don't see that often. There were several things announced by the White House yesterday. Check it out. For the next 7 days, and potentially longer than that, you can expect to see federal officers in marked cars patrolling what the Trump administration is calling high-traffic tourist areas and other known hotspots. We are not exactly sure what those hotspots are. By now, you know, several times this week he has threatened to take over Washington, D.C. We'll have to see how that situation evolves. But for now, one thing is for sure, if you're walking around the city, you may see more police than what you typically are used to seeing.
There was a conference call last night with local and federal law enforcement and the Make D.C. Safe and Beautiful task force. Sources familiar with that call tell me there was a lack of specificity and coordination during the call. There was not a clear game plan concerning deployments and responsibilities other than a directive to federal agencies to increase patrols in high visibility areas of the city. We do know the U.S. Park Police is the lead police agency. And while Park Police did not respond to a request for comment from us, Park Police did put out this tweet showing some guns and drugs that were confiscated the other night. ATF also tweeted about the same incident near Georgia Avenue. But so far, there's no evidence of any surge in arrests last night as a result of the deployment of federal police.
So I'm curious here. You call 911. Who shows up? And then do the federal police have the same jurisdiction authority that the local D.C. police would have?
Yeah, so not all police departments in D.C. are created equal. There are dozens of federal police departments with varying degrees of jurisdiction. That doesn't mean you can ignore an Amtrak officer if you're miles away from the train station. This is likely why Park Police are the lead agency. U.S. Park Police have broad authority in D.C. and the region. So what is likely to happen, you'd have one federal agency that would make a stop. And if they determine an arrest is warranted, they would request assistance from Park Police or MPD. As for who will show up when you call for help, that will still be MPD. The DC's 911 call center deploys DC police, not federal police. Unless the call comes in, say, from Rock Creek Park, then that call would be transferred to Park Police for dispatch.
Oh, thanks for clarifying that for us, because I was wondering why U.S. Park Police as a lead agency. Mark, the president has already reiterated his threat to take over control of the D.C. government. You warned about this before the election. Is that going to become a reality anytime soon, though?
So those threats always have to be taken seriously, particularly with a president who doesn't always obey the courts and a Republican House and Senate that has shown its willingness to interfere with local D.C. affairs.
Yeah, so the local news media in D.C. obviously is overwhelmingly liberal, right? I mean, far left news media out in D.C. But regardless, the point of me showing you that is that, yes, they have already ratcheted up federal agents, right? Federal officers, dispatching them to areas where they feel as if they need more help, right? So they're already trying to ratchet up law enforcement in D.C., okay? And also on top of that, President Trump is calling for getting rid of the homeless, okay? And I want to talk about this, but first I want to play this clip from a few months ago when President Trump first talked about trying to fix the homelessness problem in D.C. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
The president continues to take aim at local D.C. issues. This time he is demanding Mayor Bowser clean up homeless encampments. And the mayor is heeding those calls, ordering the immediate removal of a small tent encampment near the State Department. News 4's Mark Seagraves is live from that encampment. All right, Mark, the mayor is acting quickly to appease the president here. But you noted on social media earlier that she seems to be violating her own policies, though, when it comes to that specific encampment. Can you explain?
Yeah, that's exactly right. According to DC policy posted on their websites, they are supposed to give 14 days, 2 weeks advance notice before clearing out an encampment. Take a look over my shoulder. There's about 10 tents here off the East Street Expressway near the State Department that have drawn the ire of the White House. They've been told they have to get out by tomorrow morning. As more and more people are experiencing chronic homelessness in D.C., encampments like these are becoming more and more commonplace. President Trump has been critical of issues like graffiti and trash in the district, threatening to take control of D.C. away from the mayor and the council. Last night, the president took to social media, demanding Mayor Bowser, quote, clean up all the unsightly homeless encampments, specifically ones outside of the State Department, or the federal government would step in. Today, Mayor Bowser told reporters after that post, she got a call from the White House.
I think what the social media post said is that they notified us, and I got a call from a staffer that said that there was a encampment, and we don't know how long it had been there or how it had developed. Sometimes what happens is if one encampment closes, another one grows, and we think that may have happened in that case.
According to the mayor, this small encampment along the East Street Expressway near the State Department is what prompted the call from the White House.
I said, thanks for the notice. We'll take care of it.
Within hours of that call from the White House, D.C. government employees visited the site and posted these notices alerting those living in these tents they had until tomorrow at noon to gather their belongings and move. We spoke with several people today preparing for that move with only 24 hours notice. According to policy posted on the D.C. Health and Human Services website, the district must give 14 days notice before removing any encampment. 12 encampments are currently slated for removal. All but the one cited by the White House appear to have been given several weeks' notice.
Yeah, so the point is that this is what D.C. is dealing with, right? They have a growing homelessness problem. This is why President Trump is calling to basically get rid of the homeless, right? And also to clean up crime. And again, I want to talk about this mainly because liberals are upset. We're going to get into the boohoo whining crime from them. But this presents a major opportunity for a big W for Republicans. I'm going to explain to you guys why. So without further ado, let's get into it.
The priority is to show force in an American city. We know he can do that here. But it won't be because there's a spike in crime.
It is the big story tonight. The nation's capital preparing for whatever may come from President Donald Trump's press conference scheduled for tomorrow as he teases a possible federal takeover. The president continues to allege without evidence that crime in the city is out of control and is now putting the city's homeless.
Allege without evidence. Allege without evidence. Again, have you seen the homicide rate in D.C.? D.C. is one of the most dangerous cities from a homicide perspective, not just in the United States of America, okay, but also in the world, okay? But again, these people keep claiming that Trump is saying without evidence that crime is out of control in D.C. These people are not going to win this argument telling people that what they feel about crime is not true, right? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. They did that for the last 4 years when it came to inflation, when it came to the border, when it came to this subject right here, right? But this type of gaslighting is not going to work. It's not going to work. D.C. is not safe. Everybody knows that's been to D.C. recently knows it's not safe. The people there know it's not safe. Everybody knows that the city crime is out of control. I don't care what these fabricated statistics that these people pull out. Don't care. The ones that are hard to fabricate, again, like homicides, yeah, those are not down, right? Those are certainly not down. At least not compared to before the pandemic, right? It's not down. Okay, so these people, they're gonna run with this narrative, but it's not gonna work. It's not gonna be successful.
Community on notice. Thanks for joining us on WUSA 9 and streaming on WUSA 9 Plus. I'm Larry Miller. This morning, President Trump announced on Truth Social that, quote, the homeless have to move out immediately, end quote. Lionel Donovan kicking off our coverage tonight. He's in D.C. for us right now with reaction to the president's announcement. Lionel?
Good afternoon, Larry. Well, President Trump's Truth Social post also said, quote, we will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border, end quote. However, according to D.C.'s point-in-time count, which measures homelessness in the district, homelessness has gone down 9% compared to this time last year. President Trump put this announcement out alongside pictures showing tents set up in some of D.C.'s green areas. It's unclear, however, when those pictures were taken. Last month, Trump signed an executive order aimed at making it easier for cities to remove homeless people off the streets. At this point, though, it's unclear exactly where anyone experiencing homelessness would go if moved. The announcement comes as the president increases federal law enforcement presence in D.C. Early this morning, D.C. residents on 48th Street Northeast watched as federal officers swarmed the area. Trump pointed to rising crime as the reason for more officers, despite federal and city data showing that crime in D.C. has been going down. Last month, President Trump commented on D.C.'s homeless community. Let's hear what he had to say.
I think it's terrible, and we'll have them removed immediately. We do remove it. We've got to get the mayor to run this city properly. This city has to be run. You know, I have the right to take it over.
And coming up at 11, I'll speak with an advocate for D.C.'s homeless community and talk more about the issues that he has with the president's comments and his approach to this issue. But for now, we're live in Northwest.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that. Okay, so again, of course, as promised, liberals are upset with this, right? They're mad at President Trump for this announcement, cracking down on homelessness and crime in D.C.
We need to have a real talk about Trump federalizing Washington, D.C. potentially tomorrow and what that could mean for the rest of the country. First of all, does anybody else find it really odd that he's willing to do this after a guy named Big Balls was assaulted on the street, but not when a mob was storming the U.S. Capitol building? By now, I'm sure we've all seen this post from Truth Social from earlier today, where he says he's going to hold a press conference tomorrow morning and potentially announce that he's sending the National Guard into D.C., rounding up the criminals and the homeless. Actually, he posted again telling the homeless population of D.C. to leave immediately. He's going to essentially put them into internment or concentration camps. Let's be clear about that. You might be asking, how is he able to do this? That's insane. Well, Washington, D.C. is not a state. It's a federal district. Everything that the government of D.C. does has to be approved by Congress. Even their own budget that they submit every year, it has to have congressional approval. So if Trump wants to send the National Guard in and replace the Metropolitan Police Department, he can essentially do that with little to no pushback at all.
Hey, y'all. Well, bless his little authoritarian heart. POTUS Trump just rolled out a federal law enforcement takeover of Washington, D.C. Y'all, this ain't about crime. No. Violent crime is already down 26% this year in D.C. That's right, down. But he's acting like it's Gotham City. He's deployed the FBI, the DEA, Homeland Security, and even ICE, all under this little thing that he's calling Safe and Beautiful Task Force. Baby, if that ain't a rebrand for a federal occupation, I don't know what is. But let me spill some real tea. He's not just trying to clean up the Capitol. He's testing how far he can push federal control in Democratic-led black and brown cities. You see what happens when one man decides your mayor doesn't matter. Imagine him sending troops into Philly during an election, or restoring order in Atlanta during a protest. No governor's approval, no local vote, just vibes and executive orders. It's giving dictatorship with a side of DC tourism.
So I see that Donald Trump wants the homeless people to move out of DC immediately. Well, buddy, I have some news for you. Your policies that you have been implementing, including the big bullshit bill, is going to make a whole lot more homeless people coming up. If you don't want homeless people, then you should put money into mental health services. You should put money into jobs programs. You should put money into healthcare programs. Instead, you've cut all of those things and are going to make people, a lot of people become homeless because they're not going to have these services or anything anymore, and they're already on the brink. Also, DC doesn't have a crime problem that's any different than any other city. Like, every city has problems. When you have this many people together and you have poverty, you are going to have crime. So maybe if you don't want crime, you should put things in place that make sure that people aren't desperate enough to turn to crime. But Republicans say, screw you and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, even though there are no bootstraps to be pulled up from. I'm so tired of Republicans blaming poor people and homeless people for problems that they could solve if they just didn't give trillions of dollars to millionaires and billionaires just a few weeks ago. Like, get real, guys.
Yeah. So you see that, you heard that. Okay, liberals are upset. They are claiming that President Trump is pulling in El Salvador, right? This is what Lindy Mann said on X, okay? He said this would be interesting to watch in response to the announcement from President Trump warning the homeless to leave D.C. immediately. Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, says pulling in El Salvador is now a thing, right? Fun fact. I guess now it is a thing, right? Making your country or your city safe is pulling in Nayib Bukele. Again, this guy is legendary, right? He's legendary. But again, like I told you guys, Democrats are not going to win this battle, right? The mainstream media, they're not going to win this battle when it comes to D.C. I don't care how much they boo-hoo on and cry and make, these silly claims talking about crime is down, homelessness is down. Everybody knows that D.C. is a shithole. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that vast majority of these liberal cities across the country are shitholes, okay? And they know this. They just can't say it out loud, right? The problem is that if they say it out loud, if you are a liberal, you tell the truth, then they say that you're racist, okay? That's what happens, okay? You get silenced. You get censored, like this DC Reddit user who said it's okay to want to lower crime, okay? And their post lasted barely 11 seconds before other users removed it. Let's see what triggered libs here, right? What type of truth triggered the libs? For the silent majority in this sub, it's okay to want lower crime. It's okay to want to ride the metro without seeing 10-year-olds smoking weed or weird people grabbing your hair. It's okay to want to feel safe walking around with nice clothes and headphones without getting them stolen. It seems like this sub wants to discredit those of us who have been accosted or robbed because many people in here haven't been. Try taking the green line to Suitland every day and having to walk over a mile to your building because your bike has been stolen 4 times, regardless of the lock you put on it. This city is the best large city in the country, but that doesn't mean there aren't things that can be fixed. Fixing the roaming crowds of teens beating people up, trash all over the streets, and finding unhomed people places to live, not near a campus with young women to assault, is a civic duty we all need to work towards, not just accepting mediocrity because it's too hard to stand for a better future. Yeah, I think that this is actually a very well written, well thought out post, right? I mean, this guy doesn't seem like an extremist. He seems like a pretty reasonable person. He says, listen, we have a problem, right? Regardless of whether or not you agree that there's a problem, there is a problem, okay? Regardless of whether or not you want to fix the problem, there's a problem, and the problem needs to be fixed, right? It needs to be fixed, okay? I don't understand why people wouldn't want lower crime. Why do you not want lower crime, right? Why would you not want that? But again, these liberals are so ass backwards that they cheer for higher crime, right? So, again, this is a great opportunity for Republicans in the Trump administration. I'm going to tell you guys why. Because if they can successfully clean up D.C., okay, if they can make D.C. a model for Republican governance, then that is good for the Republican Party in the sense that hopefully that will help Republicans in some of these liberal city elections, right? If Republicans can actually clean up Washington, D.C., if we can make Washington, D.C. great again, because it used to be a hell of a city. It used to be a great city. Now it's a liberal shithole. If we can turn D.C. back into what it used to be, right? If we can make D.C. safe, okay? If we can make D.C. a place that people want to go, they want to spend time, they want to tour, they want to spend money, right? Then that will be good for America. It will be good for this country, okay? And it's crazy because a lot of people talk about how tourism is down. And it's like, well, maybe while tourism is down, okay, we should take time to clean up these cities, right? Let's clean up our cities. Let's make our cities better. Because, if I was a tourist, I mean, would I really want to travel to one of these major liberal cities, right? Do you really want to see Chicago, right? Do you really want to see D.C., Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, New York? I mean, really? These cities are not what they used to be. So if President Trump can clean it up, if Republicans can clean up D.C., that is a major political win for them. Major political win. There's no reason why we should have homeless people on the streets of our major cities. No reason whatsoever. Yes, they should be removed, right? They should be forced off the streets into areas where they can be helped, okay, assisted, but they got to get out of the cities, right? They got to get out of the street. We can't have this ugliness anymore in our cities, right? Because that's what it is. It's ugliness. It's the sign of a decaying, dying, and declining culture in society, right? It's not the sign of a vibrant society, okay, a well-to-do society, a culture, okay, that values safety, cleanliness, right, upkeep, okay, how you present yourselves, technological advancement, sophistication. When you have homelessness on the street, it doesn't help, okay? A lot of people, they go to places like Japan, countries like Japan, and they understand what it's like to live in a society where you can trust your neighbor enough to leave, something valuable on the subway or out in public, and you know that it's not going to get stolen, right? Or that somebody will make a good faith effort in order to get it back to you if they know who it belongs to, right? That you're not getting mugged in the streets, you're not getting robbed, you're not getting shot, you're not getting carjacked. There are societies, cultures on this planet, in this world, that have achieved that have achieved that type of society. There's no reason why we can't have that type of society as Americans. But the problem is that in those societies, they don't really value diversity, right? Because they're not very diverse, okay? In America, our diversity, in my opinion, right, especially in these liberal cities, probably creates a lot of friction, okay? And that's why you're seeing so much crime, right? So much chaos in these liberal cities. That, combined with soft on crime policies, certainly doesn't help. So again, my point is very simple, which is that if President Trump and Republicans can clean up D.C., if they can show what it's like to have progressives kicked out of government and to have Republicans, conservatives run these liberal cities, right, or these cities, then maybe, just maybe, that will help Republicans in the future, right, in some of these cities. If D.C. can be cleaned up, we can show this country how to properly run a big city, right? Just saying. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.